I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to News Nation, where right and left come to be reasonable. Let me start with what matters most. Thank you. Thank you for joining us here at News Nation, especially tonight. Thank you for making News Nation officially America's fastest growing cable channel. Not just cable news channel, which is what we are, of course, all of cable. Now, I know a lot of networks make a lot of claims. None can say what I just told you and be telling the truth. Not for this year. According to Nielsen, and that's what we all use, like it or not, the network has surged over 40%, nearly 50% in overall viewership, grew nearly 70% in the key demo of 25 to 54, which is another demo I don't really love. But those are the metrics that people go by. Nearly 50 in the overall, nearly 70% in the key demographic. And remember, News Nation is a startup. And it is also a testament to the right kind of disruption. You know, our politics are rife now with disruption. I want to break it. I want to destroy it. I want to tear it down. We're not here to break. The goal is to do better. Anyone can say the media sucks. Any jackass can kick down a barn. It takes a good person with a good idea and hard work to build one. Can you make it better? That is the question we set up to pursue here at News Nation, and we are on our way to answering it the right way, thanks to you, a growing audience of independent, critical thinkers looking not just for left or right, but the only direction that matters to all of us, forward. Just 1 year after expanding news programming to 24/7, this is a remarkable achievement. I've never been part of anything like it. I've been in this business almost 25 years, and I've seen tremendous success, failure also, which is why I can appreciate the success. And let me tell you, this will only make my team work even harder. And we begin that right now. We have an important show tonight. The president's border czar, Tom Homan, is here to talk about Alligator Alcatraz. And why is it necessary? Why is it worth the expense? Deportations are one of the biggest winners in this budget bill that they're trying to pass right now. Why? Why do we need that kind of money for deportation? Okay? Billions and billions. We also have the administration's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, whose name you hear all the time with every kind of foreign negotiation. He's coming here tonight specifically. He's going to join us to discuss how they got that American ballerina free from Russia. Remember the story of Ksenia? We did it here. She's on tonight with her boyfriend to talk about how she's doing, what it was like, and we want to talk to Witkoff about how he got it done. But first, let's deal with the big question mark hanging over Sean Diddy Combs, something you do not see very often happened in this trial. 4:05 p.m., the jurors said, we got a verdict on 4 out of the 5 charges, but we're deadlocked on the most serious charge, racketeering conspiracy, which carries the longest max sentence. It could be life in prison, but it's certainly the biggest ticket if they get him on it. So the judge calls them in and says, no, keep deliberating. That's his right to do it. 4 out of 5, though, he could have gone either way on it. The jurors went home. They come back tomorrow morning, and they'll continue deliberating on that final charge. So that means that the verdict as of today is locked on 4 of the 5. And we'll discuss why that is. What if I come in tomorrow and I'm still deliberating and I say, I changed my mind? But what does it mean that they settled on 4 of the 5, but not the RICO? Does that suggest that they found him guilty on the others or not guilty, and why? 2 legal minds who know better than I do and have been following this from the start. News Nation legal contributor Jesse Weber, criminal trial attorney Sarah Azari. It's good to have you both. So let's talk about first what this means. Sarah, I start with you. Do you think this means that he's guilty on the other charges or not guilty on the other charges? What does indecision on RICO suggest?
Well, I think, and speaking to Jesse, I think we agree on what we think, both of us. Shockingly. I think that he's probably guilty on the Mann Act violations. Those were slam dunk. He was flying sex workers. They were having sex. And they were getting paid for it. So done deal. I think that the jury probably knew that before they even started deliberating. Then you go to Jane. I think her testimony her case is very different than Cassie's. The power dynamics are not there. Essentially, it was about financial coercion, and the math was just not mathing. So I believe it's a not guilty on sex trafficking, Jane. And then you get to the sex trafficking of Cassie and the racketeering. Earlier on today, Chris, it became very evident to me that they're probably going to find him guilty on sex trafficking Cassie. Why? Because they asked for readbacks of testimony, portions of testimony that had to do with either blackmail or domestic violence, very close in time to a freak-off. So the hotel video that, why we're here today and he was prosecuted, a flight from France to New York where essentially blackmails her and then they land and there's a freak off. And then the sex worker who testified that she was shaking because she had just been beaten. These are so closely tied with freak offs that, remember, this jury has an instruction, Chris, that says if you find coercion or force as to any of these sex acts, you can look past the bevy of consent before you. You can completely ignore it and still find him guilty of sex trafficking. So I think that he's probably going down on the Cassie charge.
And Chris, if I could just jump in and add to that. So number one, first of all, you said it the best, right? They can't have jurors who are ready to convict him of racketeering and say, oh, he's acquitted across the board and everything else. Not going to be happening. Not going to be happening, okay? Agree 100% with what Sarah said. Something else I have to add. You know why we believe that he's going to be found not guilty, or it's possible not guilty with respect to Jane? They asked for readbacks when it came to Cassie Ventura and these isolated incidents of alleged sex trafficking. Guess who they didn't ask readbacks for? Jane, who was the more complicated testimony, the more gray testimony. It seems to me they all went back and said, we're not feeling this one, right? We don't believe this one.
Hey,
and it's significant.
Let me ask you something as a matter of procedure. Can they come back in tomorrow and have somebody change their mind on any of the counts that they say they now?
We were just talking about that.
It doesn't at all depend on whether or not they sign the verdict forms. Right. If they didn't sign the verdict forms, they could come back tomorrow. There could be chaos as they debate the racketeering charge, and then they might actually change their minds. Now, with the likelihood of that happening, probably slim. I think they come back and focus really on racketeering. And by the way, when we talk about racketeering conspiracy, it's not about the underlying crimes, kidnapping, forced labor, sex trafficking. Prosecution has to prove too. The real concern is, was this a criminal enterprise? You mentioned it with Elizabeth. Was there a criminal agreement? The defense said, who came in here and actually said that we agreed to a criminal enterprise? Sure, there was assistance, there were bodyguards, but was there a common purpose? Was there a common understanding? Is he the leader of this criminal organization? That was the part that always felt a little 50-50 to me, and I wonder if that's what the jury might be wrestling with.
All right. Let me ask something now that's not going to be popular, but you need to ask it. It's the only way to be fair about this. If it's not a criminal organization, which, again, I've always found to be very far-fetched, all right? And it seems like people's moral objection to what this guy does, which I totally get, okay? If he were running for office, he'd get beat over the head with this stuff. Although in the age of Trump, who knows what would happen. But is there any chance that they're not going for RICO because, yeah, on the letter of the law, we got to bust this guy for what he did, but these are lifestyle crimes. I don't know that this is a guy, do you think the jury could think that this isn't a guy who's a predator, that, he was a pig for what he did to Cassie, and everybody saw it, and everybody knows what it is, and everybody knows he lied about it, but we're going to convict him on these other things because we have to, but this was all a little overdone.
I mean, it's possible, but I just think that I know the foreperson, I was in the courtroom for some of this trial. The foreperson is the one who is very meticulous, was taking notes even when the rest of the jurors stopped taking notes. And I just feel like they're really trying to do their best job. I think the instructions are like 60-something pages to kind of check off all the boxes. And, RICO has a lot of holes. This was a one-man show. It was not a criminal enterprise. So I think, they're truly deadlocked. And of course, Chris, as you mentioned the Allen charge earlier with Elizabeth, that is a very aggressive thing, right? That's like the ultimate ultimatum. Hey, go back there. Not only, think through what you saw during this trial, but reconsider your own personal views and opinions to really come back with a verdict. Well, they could still not come back with a verdict. And of course, that would be a, hung charge, which he could be tried on again.
Right. Well, look, obviously, Jesse, this judge believes in the RICO charge, because he could have just taken the 4 out of 5 today and said, fine, I'm going to let you be deadlocked on that one. That's within his discretion.
Yeah.
And said, we'll take the 4 out of the 5, and he didn't.
Well, I got to tell you, it's pretty early. I mean, first of all, I was
10 hours of
shocked.
deliberation.
I got to tell you, I was shocked that they came back with a verdict this quickly. I thought that, first of all, they don't even know that Thursday's an option for them to deliberate. It came in today about when they'll be told that. But I think there's still room to discuss this. And we don't know what the holdout is. Sure, they say that they're at an impasse, but is it 1 holdout? Is it 2 holdouts? We heard reporting yesterday that there was a juror who refused to follow the instructions. Is that the holdout? We don't know what's going on. But if there is room on the top charge when there's a lot at stake here, this is the prosecution's case. If you read any one of the indictments that Sean Combs has been facing, the first 15 pages or 10 pages are all about racketeering conspiracy. A lot of this is built on it. 80% of this case was about that. So I don't blame the judge. What I will say is, now you get into dangerous territory. If he comes back, if the jury says, hey, we're still at an impasse, does he give them another instruction? That's where you mentioned before, is this getting a little too coercive? Do you accept the jury? And this
coercive, no
yeah,
pun.
well, yeah. But this partial verdict is maybe what the reality is of this situation.
Sarah, how much time is he looking at?
The transportation of prostitution carries a max of 10 years. He's not going to get the max. The sex trafficking is problematic because he's facing a mandatory minimum of 15 years. So even if he gets the 15 years, I mean, that's a long time for someone who's in their 50s, and then the sentences will run concurrently. I certainly hope it's not a guilty on racketeering, because that's then a mandatory minimum of 20 to life.
And by the way, just to add to that, if the jury accepts that sex trafficking of Cassie or Jane was part of racketeering, that's a sentencing enhancement. So then you're looking at a range of maybe 25 to 35 years minimum. So again, a lot at stake for Diddy.
Appeals are very rare, rarely successful in criminal cases, federal criminal cases. Do you see anything that screams appeal here?
I mean, Chris, I really have a problem with, I wonder if now that they have the testimony on the racketeering stuff, that they could appeal that charge and also the admissibility of that video. This case was brought because of that video and Cassie Ventura, period, end of story. SDNY then just built its case around that. So there's a lot to appeal. All the pretrial motions that were denied, all of the motions for mistrial during the course of the trial, the instructions that were objected to. There's a robust record for appeal. And what a privilege for this dream team to have an appellate lawyer sitting right there during every day of the trial, taking notes, making objections, creating this record. I mean, we don't normally get that because our clients don't have that kind of money. So it's so amazing to be able to do that as they go on. And I think they will obviously appeal.
And by the way, if he's convicted and these jurors start doing interviews, the defense attorneys are going to pay very careful attention, because that gives a window into who these jurors were, how did they come into this, what was going on in deliberations.
That
could be a problem.
Yeah.
So you guys basically agree. Do you think he gets hooked on the RICO or no?
I don't think so.
I think it's a hung jury. I think that this is a complicated charge. It's going to be very difficult to reconcile what it is. But hey, I've seen Allen charges before, and they come back guilty. I've seen actually more times they come back guilty than not guilty.
Well, but this is one where, okay, this is maybe where we disagree. This is one where I think it's hung, or if they're really aggressively, the judge really aggressively goes after the Allen charge and sends him back in, that he'll be not guilty on the racketeering.
But also, it's also feel.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, so you don't know exactly. But yeah, sorry, Chris.
I mean, look, of course, we can't know. We will know soon enough. But I will say there is a theory. It's not a theory. It's a guess that it's not a theory because it's not based on anything, because I don't know. But if they believe he's guilty on the other counts, if you guys are wrong about Jane and it is guilty on that also, and that's why it's happened so quickly, they could absolutely check the boxes that the prosecution made the case. If this were a law school exam, you would say that they met the burden for the RICO case. It's just not a law school exam. You got people in that box who have experience with what RICO's supposed to look like, and it doesn't ever look like that.
And by the way, if they believe he's guilty of sex trafficking and they believe he's guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, that is 2 underlying predicate crimes. That's checked off. It all comes down to, do they believe there was a criminal enterprise? Yeah. That's what I think they're
I thought they were going to ask a question. When I heard they were going to ask a question today, and then I got to go. Although, you know, Dusty loves this because she's letting me keep talking to you guys. Ordinarily, Dusty would have been blowing me up like 3 minutes ago. That I thought that they were going to ask something, and I know that they know better, and I know it's 60 pages of instructions, but again, you know, you guys have worked the system so well for so long. I've been on a jury before. The idea of how much time is he going to get? I know it's the judge's call, but I thought there might have been a question from them about, hey, if we do the RICO thing, what happens to him exactly? Like, what's the chance? You know, I thought there might have been a question like that when we heard they were piping up today, but we weren't. All right, to be continued. I couldn't ask for better people to bring this home for me, so thank you very much, Sarah Azari. Appreciate you. Jesse Weber, even though you got that beautiful hair, I still have you on, even though it makes me feel
it's
so
humid today,
insecure every time I
nonetheless,
see
so
you.
thank you.
You're very high on my donor list, very high. Thank you both. To be continued. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Today, President Trump joined Florida's governor to tour what the White House is calling Alligator Alcatraz. They're playing with the meme, with the gators, with the hats. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of trying to look tough. They built it in just 8 days. The largest immigration detention center in the United States costs nearly $500 million a year to maintain, strategically surrounded by pythons and alligators. Do we need this? Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, is here to make the case. Today, the president took a tour of one of his newest real estate developments, appropriately dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Say that 100 times fast. Because, why? Because it's an alligator alley. It's strategically, they say, surrounded by alligators, pythons in the middle of the Everglades. It was built in just 8 days. It's set to become the largest immigration detention center in the United States, and it is said to cost nearly $500 million a year to maintain. Here's the president making the sell.
It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation.
So the question is, do you need it? And why? Who better to answer it than the man in charge of figuring out who gets deported and how, Trump's White House border czar, Mr. Tom Homan. Tom, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
So it is interesting how Alligator Alcatraz has made so many people happy and feel like the government is finally doing its job, and so many people absolutely outraged that this is demonizing and dealing with people who entered illegally as if they were all hardened criminals. How do you respond?
Well, you know, we prioritize those that are public safety threats, not just illegal aliens, those with serious criminal convictions and also national security threats. And this facility is key for is criminal aliens. Those are a threat to public safety. And we need these beds. You know, I've been saying since January 20th, if we want to run this deportation operation, we need funding. We need more detention beds. Everybody we arrest, we need a bed, because they're going to be in detention from several days to several months, depending on the case. So, and yesterday, I didn't see the numbers today, but yesterday I woke up, we had 1,600 beds across the nation empty, 1,600. We'll fill them in a day. And we're constantly playing this keep up. We got to remove so many people. We can only arrest so many people. This day we got so many beds. So these will give us a little breathing room, give us extra beds so we can target more criminals throughout the country.
Everybody's talking fiscal austerity. You're not a lawmaker, but you do have to deal with budgets. and they look at this line item, and it's one of the biggest ads, hundreds of billions of dollars to run this one facility. And again, people look at it and say, do we really need this? Why do we need to put this much money and emphasis on deporting people who've entered illegally?
Well, let's compare it to the last administration. Okay, they were putting illegal aliens in hotel rooms in New York City for like $500 a night, and that's a fact. $500 per alien per night for a hotel room. Then they had to pay for food, three meals a day. They had to pay for medical care. They had to pay for attorney access. All these other things were added to that $500 a night. So who knows what the cost was, really? I don't have that number. I can tell you the beds here are just under 300 is what I was briefed on, and that includes 3 meals a day, full medical, doctors and nurses on site. So you got your food, you got medical, and what's great about this facility, Chris, is there's an airstrip right there. So we can also have additional efficiencies on transportation because we have air transport in Arizona, we got in Texas, we got in Louisiana. Having an airstrip in Florida, we can have all the East Coast states staging in Florida instead of having sending some to Louisiana, sending someone to Arizona for a removal of Central America or to Asia. Now we have an airstrip right there in Florida, which is not only benefits that facility, because we're going to have immigration hearings also at that facility in Florida, which means when they get ordered deported and we get a plane load, we can simply load a plane right there and take them to their home country. So it's a cost savings on the beds compared to last administration, and it's extreme cost savings on transportation because you got an airstrip right there that can serve the entire East Coast.
The October to May numbers, you say, look, we're targeting the guys and the women, I guess also, who are a threat to society. It's 3 out of 4 are traffic, immigration, or other low-level offenses. Only 1 out of the 4 are serious felons in terms of like murder, rape, high-value crimes. Is that the right ratio?
No, I don't think it is at all. I mean, the vast majority of people arresting have criminal conviction, public safety threats. But, and people look at, for instance, we arrest some people in county jails in non-sanctuary states, and they have a pending criminal case. So we found them in the county jail, which most likely means they're not a choir boy. So they're pending criminal charges. The left don't want to count that. They're saying, well, they're not criminals, they're not convicted yet. Yeah, however, they've been arrested for criminal charges sitting in county jail. We're not going to sit and wait for conviction because a lot of prosecutors will say, look, if you're going to deport them, we just drop the case and deport them and save the taxpayer a lot of money. However, if the prosecutor wants to prosecute them, we work with the prosecutor, do a writ, saying we'll put them back in your custody for prosecution if you guarantee after you're done you release them to us. So we're working that way. So we're doing the best we can for local prosecutors and giving them having the first shot at it. But if they don't want that shot, then we're going to remove them. We're not going to release them in the community to reoffend. But we are concentrating on public safety threats. I want to be clear, and you and I have talked about this before. Prioritization of public safety threats, national security threats, doesn't mean everybody else is off the table. Especially in sanctuary cities where we're forced into the neighborhood to find a guy they released from a county jail. When we go looking for that guy, many times we find others who aren't a criminal target but are in the country illegally. We're going to arrest them and enforce the immigration law. That's what the law requires.
No, look, I get it, Tom. I'm not fighting you on that point. I'm saying if it's 3 out of 4 are traffic and low-level offenses, then you start to get close.
It's not 3 out of 4.
To what?
Chris, it's not 3 out of 4.
But all right. I'm looking at these numbers, and I asked it to you open-ended. If it's wrong, it's wrong. This is what I'm looking at. You saw the graphic. That's where I'm getting the numbers from. But whatever. My bigger point is, you start to get close to what I think the president is kind of ceding some ground on. He's gone back and forth, but the latest is people who are working on farms, people who are working in hospitality, you're going to leave them alone because they're so important to those industries and to those communities. Isn't that something that he really should acknowledge, and that not everybody who comes into this country illegally is the same?
No, I think, he's the one that, first brought up some sort of program for farm workers and those in the hospitality industry. That's President Trump came up with that. And I think it makes sense. The details aren't in yet, so it's still under discussion. I don't want to get ahead of the president what the actual plan looks like. But remember, he also came up in the first Trump 45, Chris. He came up with an immigration plan. He wanted a DACA fix, remember? But Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi didn't want it because he asked for border funding. He also came up with immigration policy that I was a part of, and I thought it made sense. That immigration would be based on merit. Those who can come and improve this nation through various means and all sorts of labor. However, he still left room for families, moms and dads, sons and daughters. So, you know, a plan's being worked, and hopefully we'll get another plan soon. And I think the president's trying to do the right thing, and I support him on this. I mean, I grew up in farm country. I understand the need for dairy workers and so forth. If they can't legal workforce, then it's up to Congress or in this administration to come up with options. And so I'm with the president, and we'll see what the policy ends up being. But he came up with this himself, and I'll support it, and we'll see what the final details look like.
I hope he doesn't get scared off it again. I know it's gone back and forth, but that's not your call. That's his. Tom Homan, thank you for making the case. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. You know, very often in life, two things can be true, okay? You come in illegally, the laws need to be enforced, okay? What was going on with the border it was a joke, okay? At the same time, there are a lot of people in these communities who may have entered the wrong way, but they've done everything right since then, and they're fundamental to the success of this country. You got to be able to distinguish between the two. Now, Chris Van Heerden, you've seen him on the show many times, pleading with the U.S. government to get help. And you know what? It happened. Ksenia Karelina, freed from a Russian prison. She was detained for more than a year for nothing, for donating to a charity supporting Ukraine. She got home, the administration made it happen, and the man responsible for negotiating the deal is also going to join us tonight to talk about how it happened, what she endured, and what's next. Boy, I got to tell you, this doesn't happen enough in this job or really in life, which is a happy ending. Former ballerina Ksenia Karelina detained in Russia for 15 months because Russia sucks. That's why. The crime, donating $51.80 to a Ukrainian charity in 2022. But that's not what it was about. It was a power play. It was about punishing somebody for being America. It was because they could get away with it. That's why. She's a dual citizen, Russian-American, charged with treason, sentenced to 12 years behind bars. Her hope of returning was, you know, in and out. Her boyfriend, Chris Van Heerden, he's a fighter, literally, and he was a warrior for the love of his life. And he never gave up. He was on me 24/7. He came on the show half a dozen times. We talked a lot more outside of that. He never believed anything was going to happen except exactly this. And after more than a year, this past April, the Trump administration, you got to give it to him, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff negotiated a deal with Putin to get Ksenia released, and she was finally allowed to come home, get healthy, and get loved up by her boyfriend, Chris. Joining us now for her first primetime interview is Ksenia, Chris, and by phone, Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff. Boy, oh boy, have I been looking forward to seeing you two together. And I can't see you, Steve, but I congratulate you on getting this done.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Chris, to be with you guys tonight. And I haven't seen Ksenia and Chris since they were at the White House in the Oval Office with the president, which was, of course, my privilege to be there with them and finally meet them.
So I got to tell you, Ksenia, this is the only thing I want to tell you, okay? This guy fought for you and loves you the way everybody should be loved. I talked to your man so many times, and he was completely invested in getting you home and focused on you all the time. I hope that you know that and it fills your heart, because I've never seen anybody more committed than Chris was to getting you home. So, how does it feel? What does it mean to you now, with a little bit of time, what you went through?
Hello, Chris, and thank you for having us here today. It's my pleasure too and my honor because I know you and Chris both were fighting a lot in this and you were so helpful, and I think we can consider you as a friend now who was there for all year and a half, so I wanted to thank you for that. And it feels amazing. It feels so great, and I'm just overwhelmed with feeling of happiness and gratitude now, and it's so great to feel this like sunshine on my skin, feel my loved one next to me every morning and every night, and I'm just really, really happy now.
Chris, what do you want people to know about what this is about, and what do you want them not to forget? Because you know what happens now that she's home, everybody says, oh, it's a happy ending, and they move on. What is the moral of this story for you?
Love wins. Love wins. No matter what. If you truly believe and truly love someone, I believe that if I believe everyone would have done what I've done. I like to think that if you love someone the way I love Ksenia, you would go to the end of the world to bring them back. So I wanted, the message is love always wins. And I don't want them to forget that what she went through. You know what? She's here with a beautiful smile on her face. But this woman next to me is, you know, I have not given her credit of how strong she really is, Chris. But she is so strong. But don't let the smile on her face fool you. She's been through a lot, and she's inspiring. You know, I look at her every day, and she inspires me. You know, she gave me a purpose, and she's just the strongest woman I know.
Ksenia, how did it change you? How did it change what you want out of life?
I feel like I just get stronger in my values, and as Chris just mentioned, that love wins, and love wins in terms of we love each other, and he fought for me. He was my biggest support throughout all of this time, and he helped me so much to get through all this and keep the smile on my face. But also, other than that, I feel like I just get stronger in my value and believing in kindness and love in general. And I strongly believe that this is what's going to help this world to get better. This is what's going to drag you through the darkest places, darkest times of your life. And I feel like this experience gave me a lot. Other than it took a lot from me mentally and physically, I feel like it gave me a lot too. So I'm grateful for this part of the experience.
What do you want to do with your life now, Ksenia?
Well, now I'm just taking little steps and now trying to get myself back to normal. Thanks to Chris, I have the ability to take things slow. But I would really love to help people to get through dark places because I feel like it was hard. I went through that, and I now know some tools and some secrets of like how maybe it's going to be better to go through things. And I believe in happy endings, obviously, as you mentioned that, because it happened to me. This magic happened to me.
Well, it's good to hear. It's good to hear you getting the help you need because, you know, we've had people on who've talked about how, like, you know, Waylon and other guys who come home and they just forget about you and there's not the resources that you need. So make sure you speak up if there's anything you need because the country owes you. Steve, what do you want people to understand about what it took to make this kind of deal and what we are dealing with in the Russian government and, of course, Putin's regime?
Well, first of all, Chris, I think we all have to acknowledge what an amazing President Trump is. He's a caring man. He heard the story about Ksenia, and he directed that we do everything possible to get her home. And in fairness to President Putin, I thanked him personally for it because he took a hard look at the case and determined that this was the right thing to do. And thank God Ksenia is home. We achieved the same thing with Mark Fogel, and every time I meet some of these people who were held in far off places, I think to myself how lucky I am and privileged I am to work for Donald Trump. This is what he cares about. He cares about making sure that he rights wrongs, and there was some wrong done here. It was acknowledged, and he brought Ksenia home, and she doesn't sound like a victim, does she? She sounds like someone who is really gratified and is probably going to do wonderful things with her life in exchange, and I commend her for that, and I commend Donald Trump. He's an amazing man to work for.
Let me ask you one thing, Steve. You know, I know you obviously from New York as a very successful commercial real estate developer. And I have to tell you, I have been blown away at how you have seized opportunity of getting into all these situations I can't imagine you ever dreamed of being in, negotiating with Putin to get Ksenia home, trying to negotiate Middle East peace. I mean, you know, what do you make of these challenges you've had to take on for the country?
You know, I'm always grateful to the president for giving me an opportunity to give back. And I've always tried to be charitable and philanthropic in my life, but this gives me the ultimate opportunity to give something back. And, you know, I lost a son 11 years ago, and I feel sometimes like he directs me. You know, he just brings me to go. He puts me in places to create these opportunities to do some good in the world. And I think that's how I feel with the president. All I ever wanted to do was do some good, and he gave me this great opportunity to do it, and I'm grateful for it.
Well, Steve, you definitely did it here, and you gave these two a chance to have a life together. I can't wait. I don't want to put Chris on the spot, but I can't wait to see what happens next with Chris and Ksenia. And you definitely have an open invitation when you guys come this way. No rush. I've always said the same thing, Ksenia. I never wanted to interview you. By the way, I just wanted you to come home. I didn't care, you know, what you did media-wise. I just wanted you home and to do well. And I always told Chris, go anywhere, talk to anybody, use the media to do whatever you can. You know, there's no need for loyalty. But anytime you guys come to New York, I would love to take you out. I would love to celebrate you guys because I'm so impressed with what you endured, Ksenia, and how you endured it, but also your man. I'm telling you, I haven't seen a lot of people do what he did. And I respect him for it. And I am so happy you two have each other. Steve, thanks for joining us. Continued good luck in doing the work of the American people. Ksenia, anything you need, we're a call away. And Chris, I know you know how to get me. And whenever you want to, I'm here.
I'll see you in New York. Me and Ksenia. We'll see you in New York.
We would be honored to meet with you. Thank you for having us.
Whenever you want. It would be a pleasure. I apologize for the dogs in advance.
Thanks.
I'll talk to you soon. Oh, say goodbye to Steve.
Thank you for everything,
Okay,
Steve.
bye-bye.
Steve, thank you for everything.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Okay.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Enjoy your life. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. I want to keep talking about what we know about what's happening in our political system. I know you're mad at me because you've picked a side and because you believe the other side is evil and the problem. I get it. But we got to keep getting insight into what we're actually living through here because it's extreme and it's not going to lead to better. Fringe movements are not going to take us to a better place. They never have. Proof. I get why AOC is popular. I respect her passion. I respect how she's created a following for herself. But I want you to meet someone who worked for her, who said she understands why people believe in what they're being told, but she also understands why you need to think about what you're being told. Next. Lucy Biggers helped AOC, made a video of her that went viral, helped the newbie win her first election. But now Biggers has a warning for people. She wrote a piece with some perspective on what I call socialist magical thinking that sounds like it could make things better, but likely will not. Biggers believes that she understands why young people like what they're hearing from AOC, Bernie, the new upstarts on the left of whatever this mirror image of MAGA is that's growing within what was the Democratic Party, but that there's more to it than what they're hearing. And the social media editor for the Free Press, Lucy Biggers, joins me now. Lucy, thank you for taking the opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So what is the difference between why it sounds good, but why you have learned that it doesn't happen the way it sounds?
Yeah, I think like most young people, you want to make a difference in the world. You see inequality, you see poverty, and you want to help. And the socialist agenda, it's really great at selling a bill of goods to young people of fantasy. And then when you grow up, you have a few kids, in my case, get a house, you start paying a lot of taxes, and you sort of think, where are these taxes going? You see a ton of government spending, and you see it's not well run, and you moderate and wise up. But unfortunately, the way our political system works right now, it's really hard to get that moderate, practical, rational perspective through. And so that's why I wrote the piece.
Now, people will say, yeah, you just got old, and now you're part of the elite, and you don't want us to eat the way you got to eat. What do you say?
I have been getting so much criticism for this piece on the Free Press and then on my social media. I've been called privileged, a sellout. I've been told I have white privilege, all those things. And, you know, those are not the people that I'm going to reach. And I just have to speak my truth and know that what I'm saying is true. And I know the facts, and I live in reality, and some people are going to be lost causes. Unfortunately, you can't change every heart and mind, but I'm trying to reach the people who are open-minded and are able to see that the fantasy that socialism is selling, it doesn't work. It's never worked in any country that's ever tried it. And it would be a huge mistake for a city like New York to also try it.
Lucy Biggers, I think people should read your piece, and I appreciate you coming here to talk about it, and we'll talk again.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.